Captain Elias Rourke stood tall adjusting his freshly pressed uniform as he and his crew waited in the massive docking bay of Starbase Epsilon, a historic moment unfolding before them, the first time humans would receive an official starship from the Galactic Concord since Earth had joined the interstellar community just 3 years ago. "Do you think ITLL have quantum drives?" asked Finn, the young navigation officer, bouncing on his heels. "Maybe even pulse fusion engines. I heard it might be a Tyrex class destroyer," said Lyra, the weapons specialist. "Those things can outrun light itself." Rourke smiled at his crew's excitement. They had been handpicked, the best Earth had to offer. After years of proving themselves in smaller roles aboard alien vessels, they would finally have their own command. "Whatever it is," Rourke said, "we make humanity proud." The massive bay doors groaned open as a delegation of aliens entered, led by Ambassador Veklis of the Zalari species. Veklis was tall and thin with opalescent skin that shimmered under the hangar lights. Like all Zalari, he had 3 pairs of eyes arranged vertically on his face, and all 6 were currently studying the humans with barely hidden amusement. "Captain Rourke," Veklis said, his translator making his voice sound unnaturally flat, "the Galactic Concord welcomes you. We are pleased to present Earth with its first official vessel." Behind the delegation, a large sheet covered something, its oddly lopsided shape not resembling the sleek lines of a modern warship. "On behalf of humanity, we are honored to accept," Rourke replied, his voice steady. Veklis made a subtle gesture, and the sheet was pulled away. The humans' excited murmurs died instantly. Before them sat a battered, outdated cargo hauler, its hull patched in dozens of places with mismatched metal. One of its 4 engine pods was visibly cracked, and the name painted on its side, Distant Horizon, was faded and peeling. "This is," Rourke started, then caught himself. "This is our ship indeed," Veklis said, all 6 of his eyes blinking in sequence. "The Distant Horizon has served the Concord for over 70 years. It was due for decommissioning, but we thought it would make a perfect learning opportunity for your species." Finn's face fell. Lyra's hand drifted toward her sidearm, a reflexive response to insult. "It's barely space-worthy," muttered Orion, the chief engineer, his trained eye already cataloging the countless fixes needed. "Life support systems look ancient." "They are functional," Veklis replied, "mostly another alien, a squat 4-armed being named Tavrek," chuckled. "Perhaps humans aren't ready for interstellar command after all. If this simple vessel is too challenging, we accept with gratitude." Rourke interrupted, his voice firm. His crew turned to him in shock, but he gave them a subtle hand signal. "Trust me." Veklis seemed almost disappointed by the lack of protest. "Very well, the ship is yours. The Council has provided basic supplies and a manual for its more unusual systems. You have 1 Earth month to make it operational and begin your assigned patrols." 1 month, Orion whispered. "We need 3. Just to 1 month will be perfect," Rourke said lightly. "We look forward to showing what humans can do with this fine vessel." As the delegation departed, some failing to hide their amusement, the crew erupted. "Captain, this is an insult," Lyra snapped. "They've given us garbage. We should file a formal complaint," suggested Wren, the communications officer. Rourke walked up to the ship and placed his hand on its cold, pitted hull. "No," he said quietly, "that's exactly what they expect." Sir Finn asked. Rourke turned to face his crew, his eyes burning with fierce determination. "They think we'll complain, they think we'll beg for something better or give up entirely. That's what they want, proof that humans don't belong out here." He ran a hand along the hull, studying the vessel with fresh eyes. "Look at this metal arc and alloy, older yes, but nearly impossible to scan through with standard sensors. And these engine mounts," he pointed to what looked like damaged modified Vulcan thrusters, primitive by their standards, but incredibly reliable. Orion stepped forward, his engineer's curiosity overtaking his frustration. "The power core looks intact, actually old design, but if I'm not mistaken it's a Hyperion Mk4, not fast to charge, but nearly unlimited endurance." Rourke grinned. "Exactly, they didn't give us a fancy ship, they gave us a foundation." "But Sir," Lyra protested, "even if we get it running well, be laughed at." "Good," Rourke replied, "let them laugh. Let them underestimate us. Throughout human history our greatest achievements have come when others thought we would fail." He gathered his crew in a circle. Their faces still showed doubt, but now it was mixed with curiosity. "They gave us scrap because they don't respect us, but they've forgotten something important about humans. We've always been at our best when working with scrap. We built our first planes from bicycle parts, our first satellites from leftover war tech." His voice grew stronger, and one by one his crew stood straighter. "We won't just make this ship functional, we'll make it ours, we'll make it human, and one day the Galactic Concord will look at what we've done with their cast-offs and wonder what they've unleashed." Finn was the first to grin. "So where do we start?" Captain Rourke turned to the ship, his eyes gleaming with purpose. "Orion, get a team and start assessing that power core." "Lyra, I want you thinking about defensive options, creative ones." "Wren, download everything you can about this model." Official and unofficial Finn helped me plot out the internal spaces I want to see what we're working with. As the crew dispersed already hard at work, Rourke stood a moment longer looking at the battered vessel. The name Distant Horizon seemed to mock them. We should rename her, he murmured to himself, something fitting, something from Earth's history of ships beating the odds, of underdogs rising to greatness. Then it came to him, Phoenix, the mythical bird that rose from ashes. He placed his hand against the hull again, feeling the cold metal beneath his palm, imagining what it could become. They gave us scrap, he whispered. Well, show them what humans can build from ashes. Behind him, the sounds of welding and machinery filled the hangar. Their journey had begun. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 3 days had passed since Captain Tom Miller and his crew received the Phoenix, formerly known as the Discarded Hope, and the hangar bay had transformed into a chaotic but purposeful war zone. The sound of welding torches, the rhythmic clanking of metal, and the hum of diagnostic scanners filled the air as the crew worked tirelessly to restore their ship. Where others saw junk, they saw potential, and where the Galactic Council had meant to humiliate them, they would instead create something unstoppable. Tom walked through the chaos, his eyes scanning the progress. Engineers crawled through access panels, technicians rewired systems, and Maria was leading a team cutting through old bulkheads, reinforcing them with scavenged armor plating. Every member of the crew had a purpose, and despite the grueling work, the morale was high. This was no ordinary assignment. This was a challenge, a chance to prove humanity's worth among the stars. Captain, you need to see this. Mike, their chief engineer, called out from the engine room, his voice echoing off the metal walls. Tom ducked under a dangling cable and made his way through the maze of exposed conduits and open panels to where Mike stood, covered in grease and grinning like he had just struck gold. Mike gestured at the ship's primary power core. Remember how I said this was an old Hellion 5 core? Tom nodded. Yeah, inefficient but durable. What about it? Mike smirked and placed a hand on the core. It's not just a Hellion 5, someone's modified this thing in ways I've never seen before. He pointed to several components that looked far too advanced for the ship's age. I started running a full diagnostic to see how much power we could squeeze out of it, and the numbers didn't add up. The core should be running at 60% efficiency at best, but it's currently pushing 85%. Tom frowned. That's impossible unless someone found a way to bypass the inefficiencies. Mike finished, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Not just any someone though, whoever did this was a damn genius. These modifications, they're not standard Galactic Council designs. This was done off the books. Tom's mind raced. You're saying the Council didn't give us a broken ship, they gave us a ship with secrets? Mike nodded. Exactly. And I think if we reverse engineer some of these changes, we might be sitting on a power core more advanced than anything they're willing to give us. Tom placed a hand on the core, feeling the faint hum of energy beneath his fingertips. Then let's make it ours. Meanwhile, in the ship's archives room, their communications officer had spent hours combing through the Phoenix's logs looking for anything useful about its past missions. The ship had been decommissioned for a reason, but that reason was conspicuously absent from the official records. That was when she found it, a sealed file buried deep within the system, locked under an outdated security protocol. It took some clever workarounds, but eventually, the file decrypted, revealing an old video log. Ren's heart pounded as she hit play. The screen flickered and an image of an alien appeared, tall, thin, with pale blue skin that shimmered under dim lighting. A Laren, just like Ambassador Brix. The alien's 6 eyes darted around nervously as he whispered into the camera, if you are seeing this, then you must understand this ship is not what it appears to be. We were betrayed. They wanted it erased, but we fought back. If you are its next crew, find the truth. The Council fears what it knows. The message ended abruptly, leaving Ren staring at the screen in stunned silence. The Discarded Hope hadn't just been retired, it had been hidden. She bolted from her seat, rushing to find Tom. Captain, you need to see this. As Tom reviewed the video log, his mind churned through the implications. Why would the Galactic Council go to such lengths to bury this ship's past? More importantly, what had its last crew uncovered that had gotten them erased? Jack, their navigator, leaned in. Captain, if they were trying to get rid of this ship, why give it to us at all? Tom exhaled slowly. Maybe they thought we'd failed, that we'd break down, beg for help, and prove humanity wasn't ready for the stars. He clenched his fists. But they underestimated us, and now we have something they don't want us to find. Maria cracked her knuckles. So what's the plan, Captain? Tom smiled. We finish the ship, we make it stronger than ever, and then we dig deeper. If the Council thinks they can decide humanity's fate, then it's time we remind them we build our own future. Their moment came faster than expected. A sudden alert blared through the ship, sending everyone into action. Incoming vessel. Rin called out. Not one of ours. Tom ran to the bridge as the display showed an approaching ship, a sleek, black, unmarked vessel moving fast, too fast. This isn't a welcoming party, Maria muttered, gripping her sidearm. Captain Jack said, his voice grim. They're charging weapons. Tom's jaw tightened. The council hadn't just wanted them to fail, they wanted them gone. He turned to his crew, his heart pounding with adrenaline and resolve. Battle stations. The fight for the Phoenix had begun. The alarm klaxons blared through the hangar. As the sleek black vessel closed in on the Phoenix, Tom Miller stood firm on the bridge, his eyes locked onto the tactical display. Every instinct in his body screamed danger. This wasn't just a test, or a warning shot. The Galactic Council had sent someone to eliminate them before they could uncover the truth. Status on shields, Tom barked. Maria gritted her teeth. Still working on it, Captain. That shield array was never meant for combat, but I'm reinforcing the plating with those cargo doors. If they hit us now, we'll feel it. Engines. Mike's voice crackled over comms. Still running diagnostics. We're not ready to move yet, but I can reroute power to give us a small burst if we need it. Rin, eyes darting across the sensor readouts, muttered, they're not hailing us. No warnings, just weapons hot. Tom's stomach twisted. This was a hit squad. Jack, plot us a potential escape vector we need to. Before he could finish, the enemy ship fired a bright lance of energy shot toward them. The Phoenix trembled under the impact, the old hull groaning in protest. Sparks flew from overhead panels, smoke filled the air. Direct hit. Forward plating took most of it, but we can't take another like that, Maria shouted. Tom's mind raced. The ship wasn't combat ready. They had no proper shields, no functioning weapons. They were a sitting duck, but that didn't mean they were helpless. He turned to Rin. Broadcast an emergency distress signal on all frequencies. Make it look like we're breaking apart. Play into their expectations. Rin nodded, fingers flying over the console. Sending now. Jack squinted at the enemy's trajectory. Captain, they're moving in slow and steady. They think they've already won. Tom grinned. Perfect, that's their mistake. He tapped his communicator. Mike, can we trigger a power surge in the core, something to mimic a critical failure? Mike hesitated. Yeah, but it'll be risky. We could fry something permanently. We'll worry about that later. Do it. Maria prepped for countermeasures. Down in engineering, Mike worked fast, rerouting energy through decayed conduits, forcing the core into an unstable loop. Seconds later, the entire ship flickered, lights dimming as if on the brink of collapse. Rin glanced up from her console. They're buying it. Their ship is holding position, scanning us. Maria smirked. Amateurs. The enemy ship's comm system crackled to life. A voice, distorted and cold, spoke in a clipped tone. Human vessel, power down completely, and prepare to be boarded. Tom motioned for silence, muting outbound communications. He whispered, let them come. The enemy ship moved in, closing the distance. A docking clamp extended, locking onto the Phoenix's airlock. Heavy metallic thuds echoed as the boarding team entered. Maria pulled her sidearm. They won't know what hit them. Tom held up a hand. No guns, not yet. We need information first. Maria scowled but nodded. The airlocks cycled open and a squad of armored figures marched in. Their weapons raised, their helmets bore no insignia, their armor sleek and unfamiliar. One of them, clearly the leader, stepped forward. Captain Miller, you will surrender your vessel immediately. Tom raised his hands in mock compliance. You guys don't waste time. Mind telling me why you're so interested in an old scrap heap? The leader didn't flinch. Your presence is a mistake. That needs to be corrected. Tom's grin never wavered. That's not an answer. In the next instant, Maria and Jack moved. Maria grabbed the nearest soldier's rifle, yanking it down as Jack slammed a wrench into another's helmet. Chaos erupted in the confined space. The crew fought with everything they had, using tools, fists, and sheer tenacity. Tom ducked under a swing, grabbing a fallen weapon. The leader turned, raising his gun. A gunshot rang out. The leader staggered back, a smoking hole in his visor. Maria exhaled sharply, her pistol still aimed. Told you we need guns. The remaining soldiers hesitated just long enough for the crew to overpower them. Within minutes it was over. The intruders lay unconscious or restrained. Tom stood over the fallen leader, pulling off the helmet. His breath caught. The soldier wasn't alien, he was human. A chilling realization settled over the crew. This wasn't just the Galactic Council trying to suppress them, there were humans working against them too. Rin knelt by one of the captives, pulling a small data module from his wrist device. This might tell us who sent them. Tom nodded. Get to work on decrypting it. Jack, Maria, check their ship. We need to know who we're up against. Mike, get the engines online. We're not waiting around for reinforcements. As the crew moved, Tom turned back to the unconscious soldier. The Council wasn't afraid of humans being weak, they were afraid of what humans could become, and that meant they were on the right path. The fight for humanity's future had only just begun. The Phoenix trembled as its engines flared to life, hurtling through the void with a reckless desperation that defied all logic. Behind them, the 3 Council warships closed in their advanced targeting systems, locking onto their battered frame. The crew braced themselves as Maria pushed the ship to its absolute limits, skimming dangerously close to a nearby asteroid field. "We're not going to outrun them forever," Maria called over the comms. "They've got better engines, better weapons, hell, they've got better everything." Tom's eyes remained locked on the incoming fleet. "Then we leveled the playing field." Mike's voice crackled to remember that crazy plan I mentioned. "We're doing it." A blast rocked the ship as the enemy warships opened fire. The Phoenix's newly reinforced hull held but barely. Sparks flew as power conduits overloaded, and the smell of burning metal filled the bridge. "We can't take another hit like that," Jack shouted. "Then let's make sure they don't get the chance," Tom said, his voice filled with grim determination. "Mike, do it." Deep in the engine room, Mike slammed his hand onto a console. The Phoenix suddenly decelerated, the force slamming everyone forward. The first enemy warship shot past them, unable to adjust its trajectory in time. Maria, already anticipating the move, swung the ship's nose around, unleashing a barrage of precisely aimed plasma rounds. The warship's shields flared before collapsing, and the following explosion sent debris scattering into space. The remaining 2 warships adjusted quickly, moving into a flanking position. "They're smarter than they look," Maria growled. "They're boxing us in." Tom's mind raced. They needed something bigger, something unpredictable. His gaze flickered to the asteroid field ahead, and an idea formed. "Take us into the field," he ordered. "Are you insane?" Maria shot back. "At this speed we'll be shredded." "Not if we use it to our advantage," Tom countered. "Thread us through the densest part, force them to maneuver where they can't afford to." Maria clenched her jaw but followed orders. The Phoenix plunged into the asteroid field, weaving through the massive floating rocks with razor-thin precision. The enemy ships hesitated for only a moment before pursuing their weapons, firing wildly to clear a path. "That's exactly what Tom had counted on now," he shouted. Mike activated the ship's makeshift gravity disruptor system. They had barely tested. A pulse erupted from the Phoenix, sending asteroids hurtling in all directions. One of the warships took a direct hit, its shields flickering before its hull was torn apart by the debris. The final warship, recognizing the trap, pulled away, but not fast enough. Maria spun the Phoenix and fired their forward cannons, striking the ship's exposed flank. Explosions rippled across its hull before it vanished in a fiery blast. A stunned silence filled the bridge. They had done the impossible. 3 Council warships destroyed. Tom exhaled slowly. Status Wren's voice, awed, came through the speakers. "We're still here." Tom turned to face his crew, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "And we're not done yet." Jack swallowed hard. "What now?" Tom picked up the encrypted device they had recovered earlier, the symbol still etched into its surface. "Now," he said, his voice steel, "we find out who really wants us dead." The Phoenix, battle-worn but unbroken, turned toward the stars once more, carrying its crew toward an uncertain future, one they would shape with their own hands. The void of space stretched infinitely before them, a silent witness to their defiance. The Phoenix limped through the stars, battle-scarred but victorious, its crew battered yet resolute. The aftershocks of their last engagement still reverberated through the ship's systems, flickered inconsistently, and the acrid scent of burnt circuits clung to the air. Despite the damage, they had survived, but Tom knew survival was only the beginning. Mike leaned heavily against a railing, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "Engines are holding, but just barely. We've lost over 60% efficiency, and I had to reroute auxiliary power to keep life support from shutting down mid-fight. If we take another hit like that, I can't guarantee we'll stay in one piece." Tom absorbed the information with a slow nod. "What about weapons?" Maria, her uniform scorched and tattered, crossed her arms down to emergency reserves. "We've got maybe 2 solid shots left in the main cannons before their useless missiles are gone, and shields are barely functional. We need repairs, real repairs, not just patches." Jack, seated at the navigation console, exhaled sharply. "That might be a problem. I ran scans while we were catching our breath. There's a listening post not far from here, abandoned for years according to records. It's old tech, but it might have supplies we can scavenge. Problem is, it's also in disputed territory. The Council doesn't patrol it, but smugglers and raiders do." Tom pressed his fingers against his temple, feeling the weight of command settle deeper onto his shoulders. The enemy had underestimated them once, but now they would be hunting them with a vengeance. Their ship was a beacon of defiance, and that meant no safe harbor. They needed to rebuild before the next fight. "Set a course. If we're lucky, we'll be in and out before anyone notices." The Phoenix changed trajectory, gliding through the darkness toward the derelict station. As they approached the station's silhouette emerged against the backdrop of distant stars, its structure eerily silent and lifeless. It had clearly seen better days, its hull pockmarked with the scars of forgotten battles. A docking arm hung loosely half-detached, while its once functioning lights flickered like dying embers. Ren broke the silence. No signs of activity, no automated defenses either. Scans show power fluctuations, but there's enough to support minimal life support. Tom exchanged glances with Maria and Jack. We go in quick, take what we need, and get out. No heroics. The airlock hissed open, and the away team stepped into the station's darkened corridors. Dust motes floated in the dim, emergency lighting. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of age, and decay. Wires hung from the ceiling like vines, and bulkheads groaned under their own weight. Every step echoed ominously. Mike moved to a nearby terminal, attempting to access the main system's powers. Unstable, but we should be able to get the storage bays open. Give me a sec. A flicker of movement caught Maria's attention. She snapped her rifle up, scanning the shadows. Something's here. Jack's breath hitched. You sure? A low metallic scraping confirmed her instincts. Something stirred deeper within the station. Then the lights flickered, and they saw them figures emerge from the darkness. Not smugglers, not raiders, something worse, machines, ancient constructs, rusted and incomplete, their skeletal frames moving with unsettling precision. Their eyes glowed a sickly blue, scanning the intruders with unreadable intent. We are not alone, Ren whispered, fear creeping into his voice. The machines did not attack immediately. They stood in silent calculation, assessing the newcomers. Then, as if reaching a consensus, their bodies shifted, metal limbs locking into offensive stances. Maria acted first, her rifle spitting fire. As she pulled the trigger, the shot struck one of the machines, sending it reeling, but it did not fall. Instead, it turned its head toward her in an eerily slow motion, as if acknowledging the attack rather than reacting to it. Run, Tom barked. They bolted down the corridor, as the machines pursued their movements swift despite their deteriorated forms. Mike scrambled to override the doors, sealing them off from the oncoming threats. Alarms blared, the station reacting to the disturbance. This place isn't abandoned, Jack yelled. They've been waiting. Tom cursed under his breath. They had stumbled into something ancient, something dangerous. The machines weren't just defending the station, they were its inhabitants. A voice, distorted and hollow, crackled through the failing speakers. Intruders detected. Protocol 17 activated. The station itself came alive. Walls shifted. Emergency systems engaged. It was trying to trap them back to the ship. Tom ordered. They ran, dodging grasping metallic limbs and erratic energy discharges. The Phoenix loomed ahead, its docking clamps disengaging as the crew boarded. Maria was the last inside, firing a final shot before slamming the airlock closed. Get us out of here, Tom shouted. Jack yanked the controls, and the Phoenix roared to life. The station's automated defenses activated, sending warning shots across their hull. Mike rerouted what little power they had left into the engines, pushing the ship to its limits. As they escaped into open space, the station fell silent once more, its machines withdrawing into the darkness, waiting for the next intruders. But something else troubled Tom. That voice, the message, Protocol 17 activated. The words echoed in his mind like an omen. This was no ordinary abandoned station. It had been a testing ground, a vault of forgotten technology, and now its secrets were awake. As the Phoenix limped away, the crew sat in shaken silence. Their mission had changed. This was no longer just about survival, it was about uncovering the truth before it was too late. The battered yet resilient Phoenix drifted in the void, its engines humming with newfound strength, as Captain Elias Carter and his crew pushed forward into the unknown, the weight of their discoveries pressing heavily upon them. The ancient station's last transmissions hinted at something beyond even the Galactic Council's worst fears, a technology so dangerous it had been buried in secrecy. And now they had inadvertently unearthed it. Their ship, once dismissed as scrap, had become the harbinger of a secret war waged in the shadows of history. Lieutenant Avery scanned the readings from the console, her fingers hesitating as an alert flashed, a gravitational anomaly forming ahead, warping the very fabric of space itself. The anomaly pulsed with unnatural energy, and suddenly a rift split open in the void before them, revealing a glimpse into a place that defied logic. Out of it emerged a vessel unlike anything documented in known space, its hull shifting between solidity and translucence, adorned with markings that seemed to rewrite themselves. As the ship moved, the crew braced themselves, weapons powered and shields raised, but no attack came, only a message, not in words but in raw emotion, a feeling of warning, sorrow, and an invitation all at once. Captain Carter exchanged glances with his crew, knowing they had already crossed a threshold they could never return from. He ordered the ship closer, defying every protocol ingrained in them, and as they neared the unknown vessel, a data burst flooded their systems, unlocking star charts leading to A place erased from history, the crew debated, but deep down they knew their course was set. Following the coordinates, Phoenix leaped into the abyss, emerging in the heart of a forgotten battlefield where derelict warships drifted like tombstones, silent testimonies to a war waged beyond mortal comprehension. The truth struck them like a force of nature. These were not merely wrecks, they were vessels imprisoned in time, caught in an endless loop of a war they could never escape. The alien ship had led them here not to fight, but to understand, to witness the consequences of powers left unchecked. The realization set in the Galactic Council had not merely abandoned humanity to the fringes, they had done so because humanity was the missing piece, the unpredictable element that could tip the balance. The crew worked frantically, decoding the data embedded within the ruins, unraveling secrets that had remained buried for eons. And then the alarms blared, a surge of energy, a shift in reality itself. As the battlefield came to life, shadows of the past coalesced into solid forms, long dead ships reigniting as if time had rewound itself, and Phoenix was caught in the center of it all. The crew scrambled, Carter barking orders as Avery piloted with precision, dodging debris that wasn't debris anymore but warships reanimated by forces beyond understanding. Then from the depths of the battlefield a behemoth stirred, a ship of impossible scale, its hull etched with symbols Carter recognized from the transmissions. It was the origin of everything, the reason for the Council's fear, the entity they had tried to erase from existence, and now it was awake. Phoenix's systems overloaded as the entity reached out, a voice neither organic nor artificial, whispering directly into their minds, "You were never meant to find this place." The crew resisted, fighting against the weight of inevitability, their determination igniting something deep within the ship itself. The once dismissed vessel, born of discarded technology and human ingenuity, responded to its crews while adapting, evolving as if it too refused to accept fate. The ancient behemoth prepared to unleash devastation, but Phoenix moved first, channeling every ounce of ingenuity, defiance, and raw human will into a single act of rebellion. Space itself twisted as their actions rewrote the course of history, and in that moment humanity's true potential was revealed, not as conquerors nor as victims, but as the wild card the universe never saw coming. The battle was not over, but the war had just begun. Phoenix trembled as reality itself threatened to collapse around it, the awakened behemoth's presence warping space in a way that defied known physics. The crew barely had time to react before an unseen force dragged them deeper into the battlefield, past drifting warships that flickered between existence and non-existence. Captain Carter clutched the command rail, his knuckles white as the ship's systems struggled to process what was happening. "Status report," he barked, his voice barely masking the tension that coiled in his chest like a spring ready to snap. Avery's hands danced across the console, sweat beading on her forehead. "We're being pulled toward the core of the anomaly. Our engines are at full burn, but it's like gravity doesn't work the same way here." Carter turned to Lieutenant Grayson, who was frantically working to decipher the incoming transmissions from the ancient ship still caught in the battlefield. "What are we dealing with, Lieutenant?" Grayson hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Sir, I think we're in a time fracture. This entire battlefield, the war it represents, it's not just a graveyard. It's a wound in time itself. These ships, they aren't just wrecks, they're still fighting." A chill ran down Carter's spine as he understood the long-dead vessels weren't merely relics of a forgotten war, they were echoes trapped in an endless loop of battle, reliving their final moments for eternity. And now Phoenix had become part of it. A shockwave ripped through the ship as one of the ghostly warships flickered into full reality, its energy cannons firing in a pattern too precise to be mere malfunction. "We're under attack," Maria shouted from the weapons station. "These ships, they see us as part of their war." The ship rocked violently as another blast glanced off their shields, the energy dispersing in erratic, unpredictable waves. "Return fire," Carter ordered. "Target their weapons systems, disable them, but do not destroy. We need to find a way out of this." Phoenix's guns roared to life, lancing beams of energy through the shifting space, striking at the spectral warships with precision. The enemy vessels recoiled, flickering back into partial intangibility, as if trying to escape a fate they were already doomed to repeat. Meanwhile, down in engineering, Chief Moriarty and his team fought against the chaos as power fluctuations surged through the ship's core. "This isn't just an attack," Moriarty yelled into his calm. "The anomaly itself is trying to absorb us. The energy signatures are rewriting our ship's structure at a molecular level. If we don't counteract it, Phoenix will become just another piece of this battlefield." Carter's mind raced. "Can we disrupt the anomaly, break the loop?" Moriarty hesitated, then grimaced. Maybe, but we'd have to overload the main drive, send a counter-frequency through our shields. Basically, we need to tear a hole in reality before it does it for us, then do it. Carter ordered. We'll buy you time. As Moriarty and his engineers worked against impossible odds, Phoenix weaved between the ghostly vessels, its crew fighting tooth and nail to avoid being ensnared in the anomalies grasped. The behemoth at the center of it all watched its incomprehensible presence looming over them like a god judging the fate of ants. Then, without warning, it moved not in the traditional sense, but in a way that made space itself seem to fold around it, placing it directly in their path. A voice ancient and heavy with sorrow resonated within their minds. You were warned, now you are part of the cycle. The energy within the anomaly surged, and Carter realized with growing horror that the ship's systems were failing, not from damage, but from being rewritten by the very fabric of time itself. Moriarty, he shouted. We need that counter-frequency now. Almost there, Moriarty's voice crackled over the calm. But we need an external boost, the anomaly is too strong. Carter clenched his fists. There was only one way. Divert all power from non-essential systems to the shields. Will overload the weapons array. Use it as an amplifier. That could tear us apart. Maria protested. Then let's make sure we don't miss. Carter growled. Phoenix's engines screamed in protest as the ship aligned its weapons, charging every remaining ounce of power into a final desperate shot. The behemoth's form shifted, sensing their intent, but Carter gave the order before hesitation could claim him. Fire. The energy pulse erupted from Phoenix like a supernova, a blinding burst of raw force colliding with the anomaly at the heart of the battlefield. Space convulsed, reality twisting in agony as the time fracture trembled, flickered, then shattered. The battlefield dissolved into cascading light, the spectral warships vanishing like mist in the morning sun. The behemoth gave a final mournful whisper before it too was consumed by the collapse, its warning lingering in Carter's mind. You cannot stop what is coming. Then silence. Phoenix tumbled through space, its systems flickering, alarms blaring, but they were free. The battlefield was gone, erased from time itself, leaving only the vast emptiness of space around them. The crews sat in stunned silence, the weight of what they had just survived pressing down on them like gravity itself. Then a single beep from Grayson's console broke the quiet. Captain, we have new coordinates. Carter turned, his breath catching as he saw the data scrolling across the screen. The information from the anomaly had been transferred into their systems, a final message from the ghosts of the past, a map leading to a place long forgotten by history. Set a course, Carter said, his voice steady despite the storm within him. We're not done yet. And as Phoenix engaged its engines once more, heading toward a future more uncertain than ever, one truth remained: humanity had crossed a line no one had dared to before, and whatever lay ahead, the universe would never be the same again. The crew of the Phoenix had spent weeks preparing for what would be their boldest move yet, a direct confrontation with the Galactic Council's flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. They knew they were outgunned, outnumbered, and technically outclassed, but they had something the Council never anticipated: human ingenuity, determination, and a willingness to defy impossible odds. Tom stood at the bridge, his gaze fixed on the looming warship ahead. The ship's sleek black hull was a symbol of the Council's dominance, a vessel that had never lost a battle. But today, that would change. All stations report, Tom ordered, gripping the command chair as the ship rumbled from the strain of their unconventional modifications. Luca, their chief engineer, wiped sweat from his forehead. Power core is stable. I've rerouted secondary systems to give us an extra 10% on the thrusters. We might burn through fuel faster, but we'll be able to outmaneuver anything they throw at us. Maria checked the weapons console, a grim smile on her face. Railguns are primed, plasma cannons are charging. And those missile pods we scavenged? Ready to fire at your command. Ren, their communication officer, was furiously scanning Council frequencies. They're trying to warn us off, Captain. Standard procedure. They still think we're an annoyance, not a threat. Tom chuckled. Then let's educate them. The ship lurched forward, moving at a speed the Council would never expect from an outdated vessel. The Dominion's Wrath adjusted its formation, launching a squadron of fighter drones to intercept. Jack, take evasive maneuvers, Tom barked. The Phoenix spun through space, dodging incoming fire with an agility that should have been impossible. Their modified thrusters, originally dismissed as primitive, now gave them an edge the Council couldn't counter. Maria unleashed a barrage of missiles, targeting the Wrath's sensor arrays and communication relays. Explosions rippled across the enemy warship's hull, disrupting their ability to coordinate effectively. "Luca, how's that override coming?" Tom asked. Luca's fingers flew across his console. "Almost there. Their security is good, but we've got something better: unpredictability." Within moments, the ship's lights flickered, and the Dominion's Wrath suddenly lost control of its primary weapons. "They've been disabled!" Wren shouted. "For now!" Tom wasted no time. "Full power to forward rail guns! Fire!" A deafening boom reverberated through the ship as their weapons tore through the Dominion's Wrath's hull. A direct hit to their reactor core sent shockwaves across the battlefield. "They're retreating!" Jack announced, barely able to believe it. "We did it!" The crew erupted in cheers, but Tom wasn't celebrating yet. "They'll be back. Stronger, angrier. We just proved to them that humans aren't prey. We're a force to be reckoned with." The Phoenix, battle-worn but victorious, drifted in the vastness of space. They had done the impossible. But the war was far from over. The Council would never forget what had happened here today, and neither would the crew of the Phoenix. Their fight had only just begun. The Phoenix drifted through the silence of space, battle-scarred but unbroken. The crew stood at their stations, hearts still pounding from their victory against the Dominion's Wrath. But there was no time to celebrate. The Galactic Council would not let this humiliation go unanswered. Tom sat in the captain's chair, his fingers gripping the armrests as he stared at the vast darkness ahead. "Status report," he ordered. Luca wiped soot from his face, his hands still moving over the controls. "Core's holding, but we pushed it to the edge. We need time for full repairs." Maria looked up from her weapons console. "Ammo's running low. We used most of our missiles in that last fight. Railguns are intact, but if we go another round, we're going in with half a magazine." Wren's voice was grim. "Intercepted Council chatter. They're mobilizing everything. We didn't just win a battle, Captain, we started a war." Tom exhaled, feeling the weight of their defiance. He turned to his crew. "We always knew this was coming. The Council saw humanity as insignificant. We showed them they were wrong." Jack, his hands still on the flight controls, nodded. "And now they want to make an example of us." The warning lights on the console flickered. Wren's console beeped rapidly. "Incoming fleet!" she shouted. "Not just one ship, an entire armada." A massive Council fleet emerged from the void, forming an impenetrable wall of warships. Tom stood. This was it. The final test. "Open a channel," he said. Wren hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Channel open, Captain." The holographic form of High Counselor Varix appeared, his many eyes glaring at Tom with fury. "Captain Miller, surrender immediately. There will be no negotiations." Tom smirked. "That's a shame. I was hoping for a chance to tell you how much fun we've been having." Varix's face darkened. "You are an anomaly that will be erased from history." "Funny," Tom replied. "Because history is going to remember this moment, the day humanity stood against tyranny." He turned off the transmission and faced his crew. "We're not going down without a fight." Maria locked in targets. Weapons primed. Jack prepared evasive maneuvers. "Ready to move on your command." Luca powered the engines. "Let's give them hell." Tom looked at his crew, his family. "For humanity," he said. "For humanity," they echoed. The Phoenix surged forward, a single defiant spark against the overwhelming darkness. The battle that followed would be spoken of for generations, a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. And even as the stars burned with the fire of war, one truth remained: humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again.